So Woodrow Wilson said that he was fighting in World War I to make the world safe for democracy. And we can question that a little bit because we can see what happens with post-World War I civil rights. One positive here, the 19th Amendment, right? The 19th Amendment was granted in 1919, went to the states, it was approved, and women get the right to vote. Suffrage. Now, that is true. Well, sort of. Because in places with Jim Crow laws in place, black women didn't get the right to vote. So really, white women all over got the right to vote in 1919. Most of them still tended to vote the same way their husbands did, and almost nobody ran for office. So it's a limited gain, but it's a step in the right direction. 1919, the year after the war ends, is often referred to as the Red Summer of 1919. This is dealing with civil rights. And we're going to see red come up again in a communist context. But in this case, Red Summer of 1919 is referring to blood. These are a series of white supremacist race riots that occurred throughout the United States, North and South. And it has largely to do with the Great Migration and returning black war veterans. So the Great Migration is when all those African Americans have moved up to the northern cities from the South, and they were now moving into the areas that had previously been dominated by the white population. And even though they're living in black neighborhoods, they're starting to rub up against the territories where the white population lived. And now those black men mostly are competing with the returning white men for jobs in the factories. So there's a lot of white resentment here going on in 1919. And now you have returning black war veterans, over 300,000 of them, that are going to start demanding equality. They fought for the country. They died for the country. They proved their citizenship, and now they're demanding to be treated fairly. We're going to see this again after World War II. In the Red Summer of 1919, there's 25 race riots throughout the country, mostly in large cities, but in also smaller towns. 80 black people are going to be lynched. 11 of them were World War I veterans. They wore a uniform. They were part of the military. They proved their citizenship, and yet they're going to be lynched because they demanded equality. White women are often used as an excuse to start these riots. The rumored attack of a white woman, for example, we're going to see the Tulsa Race Massacre. A guy tripped and bumped into a woman. It led to the burning down of an entire neighborhood and killed almost 400 people. The black population is going to fight back, though, and I think this is the difference from what occurred before. Those returning war veterans are going to put their experience to use now, and they're going to not just well, they didn't before either, but they're not just going to accept the fact that they're being attacked. They're going to fight back. There's another red here, and this is confusing. This is the Red Scare of the first Red Scare of this 1920s era. The Red Scare here is dealing with communism. Red is often the color of communism. It's the color of the Soviet Union's flag, the Chinese flag, and so forth. There's a lot of strikes and riots following World War I as the economy transitioned back from a wartime to a peacetime economy, which meant that the population, combined with all these riots happening up here, was afraid that anarchists and communists were starting to cause all these issues. And it's going to lead eventually to what's called the Palmer Raids, as there's a series of anarchists that set bombs around the country. Palmer, who was the Attorney General of the United States, is going to use this emerging Department of Justice, guy named J. Edgar Hoover, who is eventually going to found the FBI. They're going to round up 5,000 people, and they're going to arrest them simply for having attended meetings dealing with communism, which they believed was an un-American belief. So they're literally rounding up people for their political beliefs, and they end up deporting about 450 without even having a trial. They just put them on a boat and sent them. So the civil rights of the post-World War I era are complicated, and we will be looking at that more as we go through these missions.